What's going on, everyone? This is Jake, and today I want to talk about the documentary film I just made. This one was released a little over a month ago, and it was the biggest project I have worked on to date. The documentary, if you haven't seen it, is called Ghosts of Guilford Courthouse, and it is centered around the Revolutionary War Battle of Guilford Courthouse and the paranormal claims that surround the battlefield and whether or not it's actually haunted. Now, this is a documentary, or really a project I've wanted to do since I was 12 years old. Before filming this little documentary film, I had been to the battlefield 3 times that I can remember, been to a few of the reenactments, and there was just something about the Battle of Guilford Courthouse that just always intrigued me, and I always wanted to know more about it. And I love that area of Greensboro. It's just, you go to certain places and you just immediately feel a connection with it, and Greensboro is, I guess, that place for me. So I had always wanted to do a video about, the battle, tell the story, talk about, the soldiers involved, the commanders involved, how important it was for the American Revolutionary War, because this battle did lead to the British surrender at Yorktown just a few months later. So it really was the pivotal turning point in the war. So the Battle of Guilford Courthouse was fought in March of 1781. And Cornwallis was outnumbered almost 3-1. He was the commander of the British going up against the Americans. And it really inflicted severe enough casualties to where he couldn't pursue the Americans after beating them at Guilford Courthouse. He actually had to retreat to Wilmington, North Carolina, and abandon the Southern campaign, which the British had been doing for almost 30 years to that point. So going into this documentary film, it was originally going to be just, historical. I just wanted to tell the story of the battle, the characters involved, the implications it had. But within a few days of writing the script, I realized there was a whole other aspect that I could approach it from, in addition to the history. You see, being a paranormal investigator, my mind always goes there whenever I investigate, or really whenever I visit cool historical locations. And I had gotten, maybe 3 or 4 pages into the script when I realized I would have to do a few rewrites in order to, weave the paranormal stuff into it. But I decided that the film would be basically 60-40 mainly history, and then 40% paranormal. And I was very worried initially about that decision because, most of my fan base, my community, is paranormal. And so I was very worried about how, people would perceive that. When most people look at it and say, oh, he's not doing the paranormal stuff anymore. He doesn't think it's, legit enough to make, a feature film about. He's just going to do the history, boring stuff. And then there's the people that are like, hey, that was kind of cool, but there wasn't enough paranormal. We feel shortchanged. So, it was one of those things to where I didn't really know if I could make this documentary film 50-50. And I figured out really fast that I couldn't make it 50-50, because if I was to make it 50-50, I would either have to really shorten the length of the film, or I would have to cut out a lot of the historical bits, which that was non-negotiable. It was not going to happen. So I settled on the 60-40, and still I think I did a pretty good job with it. Could I have done better? Yeah, but I think, I'm happy with what I ended up doing. So there were so many production errors that went on. I had, my original plan was to go in early February, like the first week of February, film for 1 or 2 days, and then, spend a week or 2 editing the film, market it, hype up, my fan base is on all my social medias for about 4 weeks, and then release it ideally at the end of February. That ultimately did not happen. Some of the people that I was going to take with me, 2 of them got COVID literally the day before we were supposed to go. Had another person who was actually going to take me because their vehicle had a little port in it where you could charge up your cameras and all that stuff. But they had engine troubles literally the day before we were supposed to go, and I couldn't do that. And then we had a freak ice storm. We had another snowstorm. It just, thing after thing kept happening, and I really started getting discouraged. But I finally was able to make it down there the first week in March, and it was a sigh of relief. I was very happy to be there, but I was still worried because, I didn't have a vehicle where I could recharge my batteries. Mainly for my Nikon, the D5600 that I'm using to film this now, it doesn't have the world's greatest battery life. It's a great camera. I really like it, but the battery life just is not the world's greatest. On a full complete charge, which, I charged it for... I know it was 100% charged when we went to Guilford the first time, because I had it charged at least for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I hadn't used it, really the few days before, so it was completely full, 100%. But, taking all the photos I did, shooting all the video we did, which we didn't shoot a lot of video, unfortunately, it only lasted about 3.5 hours, which, that wasn't enough. The first day we were able to get some of the intro stuff, which I ended up reshooting all of that stuff. We were able to get some stuff at the first line of battle, the second line of battle, and then some at the separate action, which there were 3 lines of battle at Guilford Courthouse, and then there was, I wanted to do a historical analysis and a retelling at each line, including the separate action. Then I wanted to do an investigation of each line and the separate action, then do like closing remarks, stuff like that. And then I also wanted to have, a bunch of stuff, B-roll. I wanted to have way more B-roll than I had A-roll, which is kind of odd because, there are very limited views at Guilford Courthouse. There's statues, which are really cool. Monuments are always great. Cannons, which I think I shot like 20 videos of these one set of cannons. But most of Guilford Courthouse is just wooded wilderness. That's it. A bunch of trees, paths going through them. There are a few really cool down trees that have like really wicked looking roots sticking out, and those were fun. But for the most part, it's just, it's like walking into the woods. That's essentially it. But I was able to get more than enough B-roll. I actually didn't use about 65% of the B-roll I shot was never used in the final version of the film. But it sucked because I realized I wouldn't be able to get all the stuff that I wanted to. So that first day we got everything done from the first line, which is the paranormal, history. We got the introduction stuff done, which I ended up, like I said, reshooting. Got all the stuff done at the second line, but I wasn't happy with the paranormal stuff or some of the history, so I ended up reshooting that later. And then we only got about 2 to 3 minutes worth of the separate action stuff, and I was very, very discouraged. I wasn't able to make it back to Guilford Courthouse for about a week. Yeah, about a week after that. And I went and reshot a few things at the first line, mainly B-roll. Took care of some stuff second line, mainly the investigation stuff. I think I filmed about 40 minutes worth of investigation stuff there. Completely redid the separate action bit, which I was very, very pleased with by the end of it. And then I went and did the third line action, which was really cool. One of the big mysteries about Guilford Courthouse is they don't know where the courthouse is. So I was able to get all of that stuff done. Then I shot a lot of B-roll. And then I did film a better intro. I did film like a middle halfway point, kind of, summarizing what had happened at that point, but I ended up not using that. And then I did film a conclusion, and I did end up using that because I didn't know exactly how I wanted to end it, but I was happy with how I ended it. But it was very, it was a good shoot. I didn't have as much time to hype it up as I wanted to, mainly because I lacked promotional materials. So what I did have a bunch of reenactors groups send me footage and photos from reenactors, which if any of you are watching the video, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It meant a lot to me. So I was relying on that stuff to kind of market the film for most of it in February. And then I had a family member who had some photos from when we went to Guilford years back, and so I had them transfer some stuff to me, and I used some of that. And that was basically it until I actually got to Guilford. Then I was able to use, my photos. And they were good. The first day was very rushed. And the second day, we were there for, I think we were there 5.5, 6 hours at this battlefield. And it was hot. I think it was like 81, 82 degrees the first day. And then the second time we went was about the same. There was a slight breeze, so it kind of affected the wind, It messed with the audio, but I was just happy to get it done and happy to be there. And then I got home and I was looking over all the footage, had scheduled a bunch of promo stuff to go out on all of my pages, And then I realized that I wasn't happy with any of the historical bits. So, very discouraged once again. What I ended up doing was taking my book here, Long, Obstinate, and Bloody, which is the official book of the Battle of Gifford Courthouse, which is well worth a read. Highly recommend it. The two authors, I can't remember their names, sorry about that, but the ones who wrote it, they did an amazing job. It's a very detailed retelling of the battle. And I read this book literally 3 times in a week, just soaking up all the information. And, even when I was at work, I have a notebook with me. I actually usually have my notebook here, but it's somewhere in my room. But I would write notes, like a loose script, more accurately bullet points. And I would come back to my laptop here and fully flesh out the script. And what I did was I recorded myself sitting at a desk, real formal like. It's kind of like something you'd see on the History Channel, and I decided to film the historical bits there, and then kind of splice in some of the historical stuff that I filmed on the grounds. And it was very last minute. It sucks because I can kind of tell when I go back and look at the footage that it was last minute. But like I said, I was very happy with how it turned out. As always, my editing is not, Hollywood level, but it is getting better. But it's in your mind as a filmmaker, you see the finished product before you even start writing the script. I saw how I wanted the film to end up long before I started shooting it. And so I was just trying my hardest to reach that vision, and it didn't quite reach it, but it got very close. I was very happy with it. I actually released it the 3rd week of March is when I released it. No, it was the 2nd week of March. I'm getting my dates mixed up. But it was the 2nd week of March I released it. It's gotten a lot of views on Facebook. Last time I checked, it was about 200 on YouTube. And I think it was a few thousand on Facebook. And I didn't put any ad money on it or anything. I was planning on it. But, I just kind of wanted to see for a while what it would do on its own. And it's doing very well. Facebook views are about what I figured they would be. YouTube is honestly a little down, which, it is what it is. You can't always control that stuff. But I definitely learned a lot making this film, not just from a filmmaker's perspective, but also as a businessman, a marketer. I feel like my marketing has improved, tenfold. Since I started this documentary, and I really can't wait to start working on my next documentary film. I'm also thinking about not doing another documentary feature for a little while, but I'm thinking about doing, more of a narrative. I do have 2 feature-length documentary films under my belt, so, I do know how to fit, the time. If someone tells me, hey, Jake, this needs to be, an hour and a half or an hour and 15, no problem, I can do that. But, stringing together a cohesive narrative that's entertaining and doesn't, go off into wacky land too many times, it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think I'm up to the task. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all have enjoyed it. I hope you all learned something. That's kind of the fun of doing these videos. As I'm sitting here talking about it, I'm realizing so many things, that I did learn about, not just the film, the battle, but as a filmmaker. Also met some really cool people along the way, made a few friends, and, that's worth the price of admission right there. But I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment your thoughts below, or things you've learned while working on film projects, or even making a video. Or if you have any questions, feel free to either private message me or comment below, and I always get back to, any and all comments as long as they're respectful. And subscribe for more, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.